Okay, so I want to react to this story that has gone, I guess, viral or has been a pretty popular groups of videos. So this is a bunch of clips that we will react to, we will watch. If you want to watch, her, by yourself or whatever, uh you can find it, right? You just type in TikTok, love with my psychiatrist. Um or her name is Kendra. So if you want to, but I think it might be an interesting breakdown of women's psyche because in my in my personal time, or I don't know, I kind of like the the inner workings of a human of the human brain, in the sense that the human mind, right? How we think, how we act, and stuff like that. So I always find it interesting. So I figured let's check this out and break it down. It seems like it's interesting, so hopefully you guys like it. Okay, so let's check it out. It's a bunch of clips, a bunch of probably 2 to 5 minute clips. So, but it's a lot. It's a lot of clips. So bear with me. This is probably going to be maybe maybe an hour's worth or whatever, maybe, but we'll see. But yeah, if you guys think this would be interesting, uh, tell me in the comments below. All right, so let's break this down.
I fell in love with my psychiatrist, and he knew, and he kept me until I had the strength to leave after 4 years. Here it is, part one. So I decided to go back on ADHD meds after many years of being off of them. I was on them in my early 20s to help me get through college. And then I went off of them because they just weren't, like, the side effects were too much over the benefits. But then in my late 20s, I read this book, Taking Charge of Adult ADHD, and it absolutely changed my life. For my fellow ADHDers, there's so many good things in here. And the biggest thing that I took away was that it's very important for ADHDers to be on meds. So I decided to make an appointment with a psychiatrist. I just Googled psychiatry in the city that I lived in, and I went with the first one that came up, and I got an appointment within a month. And then I booked a 90-minute intake, and I show up to the intake, and this man is my age, and I can't help but notice that he's pretty attractive, this psychiatrist. I fell in love with my
This is one. Let me say this. Let me talk about my view with ADHD. It's essentially being hyperactive. This is something that I honestly believe it's a weakness that you can control, but you are weak, so you don't try to control it. So I just think it's a bunch of BS, in my personal opinion. But here's the thing: this is something that it has been studies that more women than ever are on meds, for antidepressants, for any kind of mental disorder. More women than ever. Instead of having self reflection, having discipline, having control over yourself, women are just taking a whole bunch of meds. And who knows how that is affecting them mentally. I think that's a slippery slope. And I find it interesting. Go Finding her a psychiatrist and now finding him attractive. I've said this before. Women are absolute if a woman finds a man attractive, like she's into him, she's really into him, there will be no rules, no regulations, no red flags. Women will go absolutely crazy for the man if she finds them attractive. Because in most women's mindset, most women find most men unattractive. So it is hard for women to find men they find attractive. So women can be very obsessive if she finds a man she's attracted to. Um, and they will ignore red flags. They will ignore because you're falling in love with your psychiatrist. Those are borders that you shouldn't be crossing, but women will ignore it. Women ignore the whatever stigmas that may go along with it because she wants the man.
I fell in love with my psychiatrist and he kept me anyway, part two. So, in this intake, I kind of clocked that he was attractive in my age, but when I tell you that I've had a lot of couch time in my life, a lot of therapy, I just went right into it. I trusted him enough, of course, why wouldn't I, to tell him about my childhood trauma, my daddy issues, if you will, what I had went through, all of the relationship trauma that I had. I was 6 months sober at this time, but like all of the drinking and substance use I used to do. And he just listened and nodded. And that's the thing about psychiatrists, is that they're good at pretending to listen. They can appear connected, but that doesn't mean that they're always connected. So I just felt really seen. And I also told him, I was like, look, I don't want to be on stimulant meds. So he listened to me and he put me on the non-stimulant ADHD med at the lowest dose just to figure out if it was going to work for me. I fell in love with my psychiatrist and he kept.
This is the problem. So many men are now dealing with women that are broken, that have mental disorders, that have trauma in their life. And this is what men are dealing with. I honestly believe more women than ever have mental issues that are dealing with traumatic history, traumatic past. And we are seeing this more and more, particularly on social media, with women's takes, women's point of views, all this stuff. Women are broken. Because you wonder why more women than ever are on antidepressants, are on some form of medication for their mental instability. More women than ever. And this is what men are dealing with.
Me anyway, part two. So in this intake, I kind of clocked that he was attractive in my age, but when I tell you that I've had a lot of couch time in my life, a lot of therapy, I just went right into it.
She's broken. This is let me say this. This is why I believe therapy, all these mental health doctors are essentially 80% maybe crock of shit. They don't do nothing. A lot of couch time, and yet you're still very unstable. What was the point? What's the point of these mental health doctors when they've solved nothing? They've solved nothing. You were probably better off on your own. Literally, we see these supposed doctors all the time. What are they improving? Honestly, I think they're just learning on the job. I really do. Then they're not really helping people. I honestly don't believe. And I'm not saying majority, but or I'm not saying all, but I believe a good amount are very useless.
Trusted him enough, of course, why wouldn't I, to tell him about my childhood trauma, my daddy issues.
Your daddy issues. So no wonder you fell in love with your psychiatrist. You fell in love with a man you find attractive. A man that's listening, a man that's doing his job, and you fell in love with him. And we gotta remember this, right? We gotta remember all these details because this is a long ass. I mean, 2 minutes, about under 2 minutes each so far, each clip. So we gotta remember some of these stuff where here's a woman has a very messed or she's mentally unstable. She's mentally unstable herself. Has daddy issues. And now falling in love with a man that's doing his job. Essentially just listening to her. But add on because he's attractive. Oh, here's an attractive man that's listening to her. Yeah.
I was in love with my psychiatrist and he kept me anyway, part 3. So
He kept you anyway. We will talk about that. It's his job.
I hadn't ever seen a psychiatrist before. When I was on meds in my early 20s, I only got meds from my primary care physician. So I didn't understand how psychiatry works. So because he was figuring out my med dose, I saw him every month and he just made me feel like I was his friend. He was really, really funny and cracked jokes and told me he was impressed with my running that I would do. And yeah, so of course I loved the attention that I got from him. And it was in my 3rd session with him, because at this point we were all on Zoom, that I asked him, I said, "Hey, do you mind if I call you by your first name?" And he's Pakistani, so I said his first name wrong. And he said, "Well, it's pronounced this, but yes, of course you can." And he seemed so smug and happy with himself. And I know that that is because that was his first sign that him pretending like we're friends was working. And to be fair to me, I had only ever been to therapy before. I didn't realize that, it's important to call your doctor last name. I mean, I did know that. I did it with all my other doctors, but it just showed that the boundaries were blurring, and he liked that. So from then on, from my 3rd session on, I started calling him his first name. And then he just started turning up the volume on us being friendly. And he would ask me, for the first 6 sessions, he asked me, after the meds, he said, "How's your bowels, bladder, and appetite?" And I would say they're all normal. And then he would ask me any thoughts of harm. And apparently that's pretty common for psychiatry to ask those questions. And then on our 6th session, when things were really, the chemistry was starting to be there before, like I didn't realize it. I was like, "Oh, this man is just friendly." And he said, "I have to ask this because it's a special interest of mine, but is there any thoughts of harm?" Like I was special to him. And I said, no thoughts of harm. And he didn't ever ask me a clinical question again. He stopped asking me about my bladder, bowels, and appetite, and he stopped asking me about thoughts of harm. So to me, I would just show up and he was like a therapy appointment every month. I was in love.
This woman, in her brain, she's blurring lines. In her brain, she's blurring lines. In her brain, I believe she's trying to push the buttons where she's trying to make it more personal. While here's the thing where I believe this is probably part of psychiatry, part of the mental health doctors, uh, process where they do want you to be in a more friendly environment where you would easily share any kind of information like mental health issues. So I believe it's part of the now I've never uh had a therapist or psychiatrist or any of these mental health quacks before. I mean, it's personally because I think it's useless or I think it's pointless. But logically, I would think that it does make sense for someone who's trying to treat you mentally to get on a more personal level with you, where you would easily spill out any kind of personal information, as in childhood traumas, personal feelings, personal issues, so they can get to maybe the root or core of any kind of mental problems you may have. So it's it's hard where in her mind she's thinking about, oh, he's being way too friendly, he's being like turning up the volume, like try to be interesting. But to be honest, he's interesting, and but the lines are very blurry because again, this is a profession where you have to listen, you have to really understand somebody, you really have to get to know someone well. You will have to dive in deep into someone's psyche, into someone's mental state. So it very blurs the line of what's going on. I mean, you know me so well. You want to know me so well. So a woman that's easily manipulated, a woman that has daddy issues, which honestly, if you have daddy issues, you are the top of the tier of easily manipulated, or you desire to be manipulated. You desire connections with men, particularly, especially men you're attracted to. So you want to build this connection while in potentially, hopefully, professionally, he wants to build this connection as well because he's trying to get deeper into your mental state. So it is a blurring of the lines. I do admit that. And if you're dealing with women that are mentally unstable, women that are easily manipulated, well, in their mind, the lines are blurring, and she will think that you're interested in me. So again, I honestly believe that this is the problem with women that are a lot of times mentally unstable, but are controlled by their emotions. They're not logical. They're not logic based. They're emotion based. And being emotion based, you're set to be manipulated. And in all honesty, you may desire it. You may desire subconsciously, you may be desiring to be manipulated. I believe that when a woman or anyone that's emotion based, they desire someone that can facilitate the the dopamine effect of, you know, any kind of emotion based, right? If someone can make you really happy, but also make you really sad, really angry, just really emotional, you may desire that person. You may subconsciously want that person. You may subconsciously can't stop thinking about that person because that person can enact a dopamine effect with these emotion levels in you. So you may desire these manipulators, the bad boys, the players, you know, the pookies, whoever that can easily manipulate women. This is why men like that are highly desired, particularly by the women that are trauma filled.
And he kept me anyway.
So I was seeing him every month and just gaining more and more respect for him because he would just tell me these little things about his successes and all of the cool things that he was doing in his life. And it made me fall for him, honestly. And he was really good at listening. And I mean, he's a Pisces, right? So of course he's going to be there and be able to go deep with my feelings, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't extracting from them. Anyway,
it is his profession to listen. Not because it's a zodiac sign that he listens. If you can't listen, you are absolutely not even doing the bare minimum of your job as a psychiatrist, as a therapist, as a mental health practitioner. Literally, the basis of your job is to listen, so you know what's going on in these people. Again, here's a mentally unstable woman that's honestly believing in hocus pocus zodiac signs. So no duh, she fell in love with her psychiatrist and believed this man is keeping her captive. Okay, she couldn't escape this man for 4 years or whatever.
so I would beg him to let me see him every week. Beg him, because my therapist at the time, he was fine. You know, he wasn't a predator, but he was fine. He just wasn't doing very much.
He wasn't a predator. Okay. Are you trying to say that this man that you're begging to see, begging to see is a predator? You're begging to see a predator then?
For me. And so that therapist retired and I got a new therapist. And this new therapist, who is a 75-year-old woman with a PhD, she was pretty helpful. So I stopped asking my psychiatrist, begging, honestly, to be my therapist and let me see him more, right? Which also should have been a red flag. But then I started focusing on this therapist.
Yeah, red flag for him. You didn't say that the man accepted it.
However, I would tell the therapist how obsessed I was with my psychiatrist, and she didn't do anything about it. She just was interested. She also loved stories about my dating life, and yeah,
I can't believe this woman has a dating life. I cannot. I mean, it's sad, in my opinion, to believe this woman has a dating life. It's sad. This woman is borderline psychotic, but she has a dating life. Another example of when I say dating for women is on easy mode. This woman is borderline psychotic. She has a dating life. She has a dating life. While there are men out there that are relatively normal, can't even get a girl on a date. Can't even get a girl to even get a talking stage with. But women like this can go on dates. Dating for women is easy. It don't matter if you're pretty, ugly, fat, skinny, psychotic, or normal. You will always have options because you're a woman.
She also was getting supply from me in her own way, but that's for another part. So yeah, so I got a new therapist who actually helped me. She taught me CBT, EFT, all of these different modalities. And so I went back to just being okay with seeing Irfan once a month while he was giving me these little breadcrumbs of making me feel special, telling me about his professional achievements, telling me about how he's getting international recognition. And it worked. I was really impressed. So I was seeing him
She's blurring the lines. He's trying to get to know her while he's letting her get to know him. And in her mind, because he's attracted to him, because she's mentally unstable, she's seeing more in the way of it's affectionate. It's love. This is a thing where when women, and this happens a lot in whole, let's say long-term marriages or marriages that where women get bored in, they don't feel this chemical effect. They don't feel this chemical effect anymore. They don't feel the butterflies, the chemistry, the spark, the vibe. Women don't feel this anymore. You see how obsessive she's getting, how crazy she's getting for this man. It's because she's feeling the emotional dopamine effect. Okay, that these crazy emotions she's feeling, right? Whatever chemical sparks the brain is, illuminating in her. And this is what women desire, right? Women desire these feelings in long-term relationships, in marriages, but it's either never there or it dissipates. Because, of course, after a while, it's going to dissipate. So, but women right here, women are addicted to the dopamine effect that these emotion brings, like a drug. So that's why women want the chaos.
I got a new therapist. I stopped begging my psychiatrist to see me weekly. And that is when the intermittent reinforcement started. Some sessions he'd be warm and kind and wonderful and let me in on little parts of his life and like be vulnerable with me or pretend. Other sessions, he would be cold and clinical and detached. And you know what that did? It made me work harder in our next sessions. It did. And it started the addiction that I had to him. 100%. And he knew exactly what he was doing. This man gives lectures on trauma and attachment theory. He used his psychiatric training to manipulate me and get me hooked. And guess what? It worked. In January of 2024, I was hit by a car turning left as I was going through a green light. And it was the night before my next appointment with my psychiatrist. So I was like, okay, I'll still be able to go to my appointment on Zoom. I'm okay. But I did make an appointment with an urgent care the next day just to get checked out. I had bruising on my abdomen and a perforated eardrum. And the provider at the urgent care said, I do not feel comfortable treating you. You need to seek emergency care now. You may be internally bleeding. But it was 11 o'clock in the morning and my appointment with my psychiatrist was at 2. So I decided that I was going to wait so I could see my psychiatrist and not have to reschedule because I was looking forward to my appointment with him so much. I look back at that time and I'm just like, oh my God, I put my own life under seeing him. I was fully addicted to him at this point. And you know what happened is that I showed up and I told him that I may be internally bleeding and he didn't stop the appointment. He didn't say, you need to take care of yourself. Go get emergency care now. He let me continue and just tell him about how much I loved him and how grateful I was for him. Because that was really what most of our appointments were, is me just like pouring myself out because he was so good at the intermittent reinforcement. Yeah, I got some warmth from him that appointment. So that was January 2023. And I also told my therapist about this. She said nothing. I got it.
You are psychotic. You are psychotic. I do want to talk about this first. I want to talk about this part.
New therapist. I stopped begging my psychiatrist to see me weekly. And that is when the intermittent reinforcement started. Some sessions he'd be warm and kind and wonderful and let me in on little parts of his life and like be vulnerable with me or pretend. Other sessions, he would be cold and clinical and detached. And you know what that did? It made me work harder in our next sessions. It did. And it started the addiction that I had to him.
That is a manipulation technique. That is what the bad boys, the players, the pookies do. That's what they do. This is, again, I couldn't do it. I mean, even though I knew this, even though I know how to do this, it won't come natural to me. Shit like this doesn't come natural to, in my personal opinion, doesn't come natural to every man. So I don't think so. I don't think this come natural to every man because, again, it is a manipulation technique because, like I said, women have an addiction to highs and lows of emotions. Women have an aversion to boredom. One of the most dangerous emotion a woman can have is boredom. If she's bored, she will fuck up your life. She will leave you. She will divorce you. She will cheat on you. If she's bored. So, why do women get with the players, the bad boys, the pookies, the chads, all these types of men? Because these men keep women on their toes, keep women guessing, keep women addicted. And women are addicted to the emotion, right? The dopamine effect that these men send to their brains. These men keep women guessing, keep women on their toes, keep women don't know what happened. It makes women not be bored because she doesn't know what's going to happen. She doesn't know what's the next thing going to happen. So she's not bored. So she's hooked on him. She's addicted to him. She's addicted to what he does to her brain. Now, that's a clear thing. What the Pookies, what the players and bad boys do. That is a technique. I'm assuming that it is a manipulation technique that, yes, therapists and all these types of mental health doctors would know how to do. I'm assuming he does it so he can get a patient to be more. Again, there could be terrible, mental health doctors or mental health doctors that are trying to get you to be more open. That is the purpose. To get a patient to be more open with the process, right? The mental health process, the healing process, the therapy process. So it is a way to get you to be more more susceptible, right? To the to the doctor. So you be more you share more. You share freely. You share, it wouldn't be difficult for you to share things. Now, I would say the part where she's telling him that, she's internally bleeding, it's kind of weird. So I would assume that both doctors thought it was probably not true because these are mentally unwell people. So lying is not a far-fetched thing. So because they would think who's actually in their right mind would do this instead. If you are internally bleeding, would do this, do a therapy session instead of go to the doctor. So
After I risked my life to see him, that's when he really started turning up the intimacy in our appointments. However, he was really smart and knew the professional lines like the back of his hand. So he would comment on my appearance, but not compliment my appearance. So I would come on screen and he would say, "Oh, you curled your hair." Or I would come on screen and he would say, "Oh, you're wearing glasses." And of course I felt seen and excited that he was noticing these things about me. I didn't realize at this time that he had feelings for me too. I thought I was holding them all by myself. So I was so excited when he noticed my glasses that I ran and showed him my other pair. And he said, "I prefer turtle shell glasses." So even though I usually wear contacts, I'm wearing these turtle shell glasses in these videos because just in case he sees them ever, he'll see me in his favorite glasses. He did tell me he likes the turtle shell. Anyway, it was just inappropriate things like that. We'll
probably see throughout all these supposed interactions. Doesn't seem like he's doing anything actually inappropriate. That he's crossing the bounds of professional ethics. Noticing someone, taking notice of some. This is the problem with her being mentally unstable. Her having, her issues, her daddy issues. Her, most likely women like this have men issues, men problems. Now, talking to a man that you find attractive, he is noticing you. He's listening to you. You are interpreting this differently than maybe he's interpreting it. You are interpreting like, oh, he wants you. While he's interpreting that he's trying to be friendly with you. He's trying to be, I believe psychiatrists, therapists, all these types of people, they try to get on a level where you don't see them as, a doctor, or see, you don't see them as a stranger. You don't see them as, a professional doctor. You see them as someone you just, a friend, where you're just talking, you're freely talking, you're easily talking with. I believe that's what they try to do, where you get into a state where you are not holding back what you say to them. So they know that whatever you say to them, it flows naturally, it flows easily. So that's what I assume as a mental health doctor would try to get from his patient, especially one that he's seeing often.
Teeny things that he let me in. And all this time, my best friend is an emergency medicine physician. And she told me, she said, Kendra, one of these days, your psychiatrist, she would use his name, is going to say, I can't be your doctor anymore. I want to be with you. I want to be with you so bad. I can't be your doctor. I'll see you in 2 years. So my best friend, who's a doctor, she picks up on stuff like that. So even she knew that our relationship was crossing boundaries. And
this is a problem with a lot of women. They have stupid friends. A lot of women, not just friends. The internet is one thing. You're giving these women validation. You are feeding into these women's echo chamber. You are feeding into these women's delusions. I honestly, in my honest opinion, women are terrible friends. Women are terrible friends, particularly to other women. Women are terrible friends to other women because you are validating women's delusions. You are feeding into their delusions. You are not being honest. You're not being you're not being straightforward. You're not being blunt. You are not helping. You are enabling. It's like you're trying to feed into the woman's delusions of a fairy tale, of a romantic, spicy love story. Absolutely ridiculous. She's already mentally unstable, and now you're just feeding in more into her delusions.
Getting weird, but that became my dream, was for my psychiatrist, I almost use his name, to do that. And I told him about Brianna saying that, my best friend, who's the emergency medical doc. I told him that she would tell me that, and he just would be silent. He didn't disagree, but he didn't agree, and that was weaponized neutrality was his favorite game to play, right? He didn't disagree with Brianna telling me that my psychiatrist had feelings for me, but he also didn't say that's inappropriate. Let's change the subject. It was also around this.
Let me say, now I'm giving this man the benefit of the doubt, because what I'm assuming is that there are certain things that you don't want to cross. So again, these are assumptions. I have no degree in mental health, so nothing I'm saying is backed by studies, or there's no methodology. I'm going by what I think logically. If I was supposedly a mental health doctor, what I think about these, going about it. So I honestly believe we're dealing with someone who is mentally unstable. You don't want to trigger certain hostile emotions. Now, let's say hypothetically, he says, "No, I'm not into you." You may trigger a very hostile, hateful personality mindset in your patient you're trying to help. So maybe that is not beneficial. Now, to say that, okay, the opposite side, you feed that, you are into her. Now you're feeding into her delusions of a possible relationships, and that is right. You definitely passed a professional ethics thing. Okay, so either or, it's not good. So it's better to just continue. Just let her talk. Let her think how she wants to think, to express her emotions, her thoughts, without not necessarily interrupting her or stopping her expressing process if it's not needed. Because a lot of things that you don't want You don't want to mess up their flow of thought, flow of expression. You just want them to express freely, so you can interpret how she's feeling and thinking.
Time that I asked my psychiatrist if he had diagnosed me with anything other than ADHD when I had my initial diagnosis. And he said, yeah, I did. I said, oh, what did you diagnose me with? And he said, well, you had a lot of traumatic things happen to you in childhood because of your dad. And so I diagnosed you with other trauma and stressor related disorder. And that was the first little ping that I got of like, that was weird. Why would he keep that from me? I asked why wouldn't he tell me that? That seems important. He didn't tell me because he was using that information to manipulate me. He knew.
Or he's still figuring out a diagnosis. He's still figuring. Again, this is why I said he's not trying to break the flow of her expression, because he's still trying to figure her out. He's trying to still map, okay, a diagnosis. He's still trying to map what she's, maybe any kind of disorders, any kind of whatever. So that's what I'm assuming. I'm not saying that necessarily manipulates you.
I had trauma and stressor disorder, and instead of helping me heal from it and telling me about it, he used it against me.
Now, she didn't say nothing. He used it against her. I don't know if she said anything that he used it against her, but to tell you about it, I don't necessarily think, telling you certain things would actually fix anything. Telling you, like, if you had bipolar, I don't know what that would fix. Telling you have whatever this, that. More like, in my honest opinion, telling you what you have does not give you a solution to what fixes it, in my opinion. Certain things. Especially when they don't have a clear clear thought of what you have particularly.
January 2023, at this point, I was full-blown obsessed with my psychiatrist, and my therapist wasn't helping me. My psychiatrist wasn't helping me. He was feeding it. And then I got a boyfriend. And at first, my psychiatrist wasn't really that keen, but then my psychiatrist realized that my boyfriend was a lot like my psychiatrist. And then I started talking to my psychiatrist about my sex life.
Here's a woman that is mentally unstable and able to get a boyfriend. I don't know what to say. Dating for women is easy. Men do not care. Men do not care. If men find you attractive, whatever. They don't care if you're fat, ugly, a baby mama of 8, psychotic. As long as he finds you attractive.
About tracking my cycle using the fertility awareness method. And my psychiatrist loved it. He didn't never say, this isn't inappropriate to your care, let's pivot. Oh, he just let me talk and talk and talk about my sex life. And I didn't get too deep, but about a year and a half in, and I would send my psychiatrist these emails just about how much I liked him and how I was so grateful for him, and put in a bunch of heart emojis. And this is really when he should have transferred my care, but he waited. He liked what I gave him too much.
He should transfer your care because you're talking about your relationship life with your psychiatrist. Isn't that their job to know what's going on in your life? I really find I really find women just absolutely idiotic. I really do. Because a psychiatrist does it all. They can do, you know, the therapy sessions. They can prescribe you, meds. So it's within their job to really know what's going on in your life. Or just whatever you want to talk to them about, they listen. They don't necessarily pick and choose what you would want to talk about.
And so, even though my boyfriend did not meet my needs, my psychiatrist and my therapist both were like, you have to stay with him. There's nothing wrong with him not meeting your needs.
Your boyfriend didn't meet your needs, yet he became your boyfriend. I've said this. I've said this before. Men really need to not get with broken women. Stop. I wish men have better standards. I really do. I wish men had higher standards. I get it. An attractive face, an attractive body, we're good. Right? If you're attractive, we're good. We'll accept that. But goddamn, men are just shit like this disappoints me. It really does. That we don't have. It's like, why are we willing? Why are we willing to accept whatever as long as she's attractive? I find that so idiotic. I really do.
Needs. I'm like, okay. And my psychiatrist was like, he's perfect. Don't get wrong with him. And what was perfect about him was he wasn't meeting my needs. So I was still coming to my psychiatrist looking for emotional validation, which he would drip to me.
It's not what makes him perfect. Emotional validation. I swear to God, women are this is women are so easily manipulated because everything they want is emotion based. Everything they want is emotion based. I swear. I swear. Maybe the doctors think that you should stay with the man because you shouldn't be so dependent on on emotional validation. You shouldn't be so crazy dependent on emotional dopamine effects. Maybe.
Slowly. So my therapist, who I didn't know at this time had bad boundaries, but she did. I went to her because my boyfriend and I, after like more than a year together, we started having issues in the bedroom. And so I went to my therapist and she asked me, what does your psychiatrist think about this? And I said, I don't know. I haven't talked to my psychiatrist about this stuff because I have a crush on my psychiatrist and I don't want to tell him this intimate of stuff. And she said, well, you should tell him because I want a male's perspective. So at my next appointment with my psychiatrist, I told him, I said, today we're going to talk about my intimate life.
Now, I want to preference this. Probably should have prefaced this. This could be fake. This woman could be just fucking crazy and just making the whole shit up. So, who knows? But are there crazy women like this out there? Most likely. Most likely. So, but are women in these types of situations? I don't know. But it may be interesting to dissect and react to because how crazy she is.
And he said, oh. I said, yes. My psychologist, my therapist, asked what your opinion on it was. And I told her that I don't talk to you about this intimate stuff because I have a crush on you. And he looked down and smiled so big in that moment. He smiled so big. And I loved it. It's so gross thinking about it. And then I proceeded to give him 30 minutes of non-stop content about my intimate life with my boyfriend. And I actually
That boyfriend is a stupid motherfucker. Here's a woman that is psychotic, that's crazy, mentally unstable, not liking her sex life with you and sharing her sex life with other people. I swear to God. I swear to God, it's like I honestly believe that's a that's a disrespect. I see it as disrespect. I find it really distasteful. I really do. So instead of, if I was a psychiatrist telling you, how about talk with your boyfriend to make it better? How about talk to your boyfriend to make it better? Not talk to your psychiatrist, your therapist about it, because they're not the ones in it. This is why I dislike therapy. The most logical and actually, in my personal opinion, best way to go about it. How about talk to your partner? Talk to your partner. If it doesn't fix with your partner, maybe break up. That's it. If you have an issue with your sex life with your partner, you talk to your partner about it. If you both can make any changes, can fix things up, great. That's how you go about it. If you can't, time to move on.
Recorded the whole thing because I was so excited about it. But now it makes me sick. I can't even listen to the recording. I've tried to start, but it's gross. Any ethical psychiatrist would have stopped me and said, Kendra, let's talk about your meds. Let's talk about your care. At this point, my meds were stable. And
well, again, psychiatrists and therapists, they talk about deeper things than just your medicine, because you're seeing them not just for your medicine, but for your mental health. If your medicine, if the medicine was helping your mental health, you would not be going to see these people. Obviously, the medicine is not helping your mental health. Because then why you keep on seeing these people willingly? So obviously these people who are mental health professionals are just diving in deeper into your mental state.
I was still seeing him every month. Yeah, that was a rough time. And it was pretty much his Christmas morning. The almost 2.5 years of grooming me to get me to talk about sexual things with him worked. And he got 30 minutes of nonstop content to use. January 2020.
The absolute entitlement. That was his Christmas morning. The absolute narcissism. The absolute narcissism, in my opinion. To think that you gave this man his Christmas morning moment, that now he has 30 minutes of content to use. He might as well just go on P-Hub. He might as well just go on P-Hub, because men are more visual creatures than audio. Men are more visual creatures than audio. That is why women get a better satisfaction from reading a book than watching. Men don't read. Men don't read. I'm not saying men don't read. Men don't read, erotic fiction for satisfaction. Men watch it. So, pretty sure you didn't made his day.
Welcome back to another installment of I Was in Love with My Psychiatrist and He Kept Me Anyway, Part 8. You all did some nasty work last night, and I had to turn off comments. People started posting my psychiatrist's first and last name, his picture in the comments. That was a jump scare. So, yeah, A few bad actors who wanted to be super sleuths got the privilege of commenting, mostly hate, let's be real, taken away for everyone. So at this point in the story, there are two main players. My psychiatrist, who's my age, who crossed major ethical boundaries, and my therapist.
What do you guys think? Did he cross any ethical boundaries? I personally don't. I personally don't think so. A lot of things he's done that seems logical. Now, smiling, I could be, again, that's that could be a different interpretation. I mean, yeah, someone can be what is it? Flattered, right? Flattered, but I don't know if I don't know if he crossed any ethical boundaries. But what do you guys think?
Who is a 75-year-old woman with a PhD. Neither of these people at this point in the story I knew were crossing boundaries. I thought that everything was hunky-dory and that I was just in love with my psychiatrist and it was totally normal. Little did I know he was manufacturing everything so I could fall in love with him, because it was on him to set the professional boundary and not let attention build. So days after my psychiatrist's Christmas morning appointment from a few videos back, where he got a crush confession from me and then 30 minutes of non-stop intimate content that he did not stop me, my boyfriend and I broke up days later. So then I started dating this other guy. And this other guy, this new guy, was a therapist. And I was like,
What the hell's wrong with this woman? And here's I would say this. Any therapist, I question them when they're dating crazy women. Any therapist, anyone that's mental health practitioner, I question them when they have mental health issues. I'm sorry. What the fuck? What the hell is used? What's your degree used for? Like, to wipe your butt? What's your degree used for? Literally, when you have mental health issues and the people you date have mental health issues. What the hell? Seriously?
oh, great. Someone who will be able to emotionally meet my needs. Yeah, not gonna date another therapist again. So this therapist and I, we went for coffee. It was nice. Our second date was a hike. And on this hike, this therapist starts telling me about how he has a crush on one of his clients. And I thought to myself, okay, this is strange, but go ahead. Like, we're on a date, dude. Why are you telling me about a crush on one of your clients? But go off, King. So then he was saying, yeah, she's so attractive and I think she likes me too. I go and visit her at work and...
No, that is unprofessional. That is crossing professional boundaries. When you have a crush on your client and you're telling it to someone you're on a date with.
Her coworkers say, oh, so-and-so talks about you all the time. And I was like, okay, where does she work? And he said, well, I shouldn't tell you that because I really shouldn't be visiting her anyway. I was like, okay, no problem. So then he continues and he said, yeah, she wears these red lacy panties and short skirts. And I know she wears them for me. And like alarm bells were going off in my head. Mind you, I had no idea that my psychiatrist had similar feelings towards me at this point. But I just thought, wow, this man is borderline predatory. And he said, yeah, and she just is so attractive that I have to smash her mate before every session because I just have to get that energy out of me. And I was like, Okay. And yeah, he just felt compelled to tell me, and I did not understand why. Now I do. So he told me about how he's a predator, right? Another predator in the mental health industry. Shocker. So then at my next appointment with my psychiatrist, keep in mind, it had
This man tells you he's a predator? This is why these stories are like hard to believe. This is why it's hard to believe. I, I find it really just absolutely a ridiculous story. I really do. A man just comes out and tells you he's a predator.
been 6 weeks of nonstop fun for this man. He got to use my crush confession and 30 minutes of content. Oh, for whatever he wanted to use it for.
The level of narcissism is like, who the hell are you?
Right? And if my psychiatrist was good at anything, it was being professional and acting professional and technically not crossing any lines. And he thought that he was so good at it, because he was good at it. But that doesn't mean he wasn't doing it. And so I told him, I said, yeah, Bo and I broke up. He had known about this other guy, my psychiatrist. I had mentioned him. And I told him that this new guy and I went on a date and we went on a hike. And I literally had no idea at this point, I'll say it again, that my psychiatrist was predatory towards me. I almost said his first name again. I'm going to do my best to not. So I went to my psychiatrist and I told him this story about this man that I went on a date with, who's a therapist, is relieving himself before appointments and talking about his clients' panties and doing all of these other extremely inappropriate things, like visiting her at work. And this man, my psychiatrist, looked like he had seen a ghost and like he was gonna vomit, because he prided himself on being an extremely professional and buttoned up person. But here I was holding a mirror to him with exactly what he was doing, but a bumbling idiot telling me like how he was doing it without the fancy degree, without any of that. I look back on that now and it's just crazy. And so it just tainted all the fantasy material that I'd given him the session before. Welcome back to another installment of I
don't know. I find it hard to believe what she view as emotional expressions. I find it hard because to hold a mirror to him, okay.
Hi, I need to say something really important. And that's that it seems as though many people view what I'm going through as a crash out, what I'm doing as a mental health spiral. And of course it seems like that. I get it. It's an extremely dark thing to talk about, all of this that I went through. And I am sharing my story because it wasn't out there. No one else has shared a story like this. But I know that it happens a lot because people are in my DMs telling me that this.
I question this because sometimes it seems like she's overacting. Seems like she's being too much. Doesn't feel natural sometimes. She's pushing the lines to be crazy, pushing the lines to seems like she's overacting. So I definitely would say, a grain of salt.
Same thing that I went through, they went through too. I am now in TikTok jail. I got a violation on the video where I talked about really the biggest damning evidence against my psychiatrist. And so because of that, I have to be really careful. So I'm going to do my very best to not be reactive and to share my story from a place of generosity. Because the people in my DMs telling me that they've been through this too, it's keeping me going. It's not my mental health spiral. And I can understand that for some people in the mental health space, because they have been some of the loudest people to speak out against what I'm doing, it's hard to grasp that someone could have this level of predation in such a high place of power. So just in case my video doesn't get put back up, when everything changed was when my 75-year-old therapist, I went to her with intimate details, and she suggested I go to my psychiatrist with them. And I felt so excited and nervous to share that with him because I had such a big crush on him at the time. And I recorded all 33 minutes. So this is why, if my psychiatrist wants to come with me and like sue me for defamation, I have a 33-minute recording of me admitting I have a crush on him and speaking about extremely intimate details. It was in that moment that he really, really should have transferred my care. But that moment changed everything for him too, because that's when things really started getting deep between us. And this is where the story is going to go from now. It's going to be a good story. And I'm going to try to tell it all today, just in case one of my videos does get banned so people can hear it. But just know, if you're concerned for my mental health, So this is when the chemistry really started going off the charts with me and my psychiatrist. And I held it alone for months, like after that Christmas morning appointment of his. And then after I innocently told him about my date with the therapist, he really started letting me in more and showing more parts of himself and, turning up the intimacy. And that was exciting to me, and it made me fall for him more. And I noticed that he was working in an office, and I asked him, this was like July, I said, hey, are you working from home? Because I was under the assumption that he was only doing telehealth, okay? And he said, no, I come into the office. I was like, oh, why do you do that if you see all of your patients telehealth? He's like, oh, I like it that way. And even though I could kind of tell he was lying, I just gaslit myself. I was like, okay, it's fine. And then I start emailing him my fun little emails, but he stops writing me back. He does not write back to my emails anymore. Because once again, he was really good at plausible deniability. But what he did do is he would take my emails and mention them in session. So he would still give me the attention that I was craving, but only under his structure, under his control, where there was no paper trail. And I loved that too.
Or he was keeping it professional in the sense that, what's the point of talking to you outside of work hours? What's the point? Rather do it during the session. Keep it within your allotted time frame. This is a thing where maybe people have lives to, cater to your mental instability 24/7 isn't that desirable for, I'm pretty sure, most mental health professionals. Rather, if they have something to say, they might as well say it during your allotted time.
So I would show up to these sessions with my notes app, and just throughout the month, as I was thinking about him, I'd write down things that I wanted to talk to him about, and I would just come and bring him lots of content. And then every week I would go to my therapist and tell her about how much I loved my psychiatrist. And she didn't help me at all. She just kind of like enjoyed hearing about it, honestly. So October 2024 rolls around and we're just vibing on Zoom. And then I realized that I didn't have my next appointment with him. So I called his office staff and I talked to the office manager, who was awesome. We really got along, we vibed. And the office manager asked me, do you see him, the psychiatrist, in person or on Zoom? And I felt so angry in that moment. I was like, he sees people in person? And she said, yeah, he has been for years. I was like, I want to see him in person. And I understand, like, some people may think that this is part of my crash.
And that's probably why he doesn't need to transfer you. He sees that, okay, you can say you have a crush, you can say all these things. It's fine. It's over. It's online. It's not in person. There's no likely a potential, crossing of boundaries. So it is fine that he's listening to your mental health issues instead of doing it in person. He's being professional.
Out or part of me harassing him, which is what I've gotten lots of accusations of. But I just would like to remind everyone that, of course, it seems that way. But I was just responding to a dynamic which my psychiatrist fostered. There was chemistry between us because he allowed it. And so then the next time I saw him in Zoom, I told him, I was like, hey.
There was chemistry for you. Literally, you didn't say nothing about him. Like, you didn't really, nothing you said that showed you he has chemistry with you. You had chemistry with him. That's something that a lot of women gotta really realize. One-way chemistry isn't we have chemistry. No, you believe it.
Your office manager outed you and told me that you see people in person. Why didn't you tell me that when I asked? And he said, oh, I just didn't think you'd want to come in. And that was such a weak lie from him, from someone who is so scripted and controlled. He didn't even have a plausible thing to say. Of course he knew I wanted to come in. I had a crush on him. I told him that often. So then in my next therapy appointment, after finding out that he was lying to me about seeing patients in person, I told her that. I told my 75-year-old PhD therapist that my psychiatrist lied to me about seeing people in person. And she looked at me and she said, well, it's probably because he knows that there will be a lot of sexual tension in the room if you go in person. So make sure that you understand that when you go. And you better believe I showed up to the next session and said you lied to me because you were afraid of the tension that would be there between us. He just didn't say anything. So this is when the chemistry really started.
Sexual attention between you both, or the sexual attention that you are putting out, because you are obsessed with him, you have a crush with him. It has yet to, by your own words, be perceived as both ways, as both people, okay, crossing boundaries, or both people are interested. Seems like it's just one way. I believe he doesn't want to cross that boundary because you are obsessive. So he doesn't want to do that. This is the point where if she's saying that she actually went, then I would probably say this is where he should have not let that happen.
October 2024, I make my first in-person appointment with my psychiatrist in November. My 75-year-old female therapist tells me that it's because he kept me on Zoom because he was so attracted to me. He didn't want to risk being in person with me, which further fed my crush, or as some of you like to say, my delusion. So then my therapist starts texting me in between our weekly meetings, asking me for advice on her other clients. And I was a new coach. I had only been coaching for about a year, and I had just left my full-time job to be a coach full-time. And
This, oh God, this is why I believe therapy. I believe these psychiatrists are a crock of shit. I believe these modern day fucking coaches. Why are you coaching people? What are you coaching people? Seriously, you are unstable. You are not the beacon that people want to emulate. Coaching people, I swear to God, this whole um wave of women in particular, wanting to be coaches, manifestation coaches, dating coaches, life coaches, career, all these stupid ass coaches. I swear to God.
I was flattered that she would ask me advice on her other clients. I just thought, oh my gosh, a 75-year-old woman with a PhD wants my advice on what she should do with her clients.
That's why I don't.
So then November rolls around, and I'm about to meet my psychiatrist in person for the first time. So I wear a really pretty dress, I do my makeup, of course, right? And I show up, and I get to talk to the office manager, we're having fun. And then my psychiatrist comes into the foyer, and I am just so excited to finally meet him. I'd been his patient for 3 years at this point, and he had been feeding the dynamic for 3 years. And I was just thrilled to meet him. And I ran up and I gave him the biggest hug. And you know what he did? He barely patted me on the back. It was the most awkward thing ever. But I am so glad that he did that. I am really glad, because this is what I mean. My psychiatrist was many things, but he was not stupid. So I didn't ever touch him again. And I'm grateful that our relationship didn't ever cross that line, because it would have made everything so much harder. Anyway, so we go inside his office, and I tell him that my therapist had texted me asking me for advice on her other clients. And he just looked at me and he said, Kendra, that is a huge boundary violation. She should not be doing that. And I was like, oh, okay. And because once again, my psychiatrist did not like sloppy people. He did not like sloppy people. And you know what my therapist did? She got sloppy. Yeah. Using me as her advisor for her clients. It got weird. And I was very grateful for my psychiatrist for pointing out that boundary violation, because that was the thing. He didn't ever message me in between appointments because he was too smart to do that. But did he ever stop me from disclosing extremely intimate details? No. In my first in-person...
Why would he do that? He's a psychiatrist. He's trying to get to know you. I've yet to really, this is what I'm talking about. I've yet to really hear this man cross really any boundaries.
Appointment, I just asked him for some pointers for my own ADHD business, and he's so smart and so wonderful, and in many ways, honestly. And I was just so grateful that he was almost like a mentor to me in these moments, and I'll still treasure that about him. Because this is the hard thing with sophisticated predators, is that they're not all bad. Like, my psychiatrist helped me with many things, but he was... So this is when the chemist...
To call him a predator is so... It's absolutely disingenuous. It's absolutely such a... In my opinion, it weakens the word. It weakens the word to call this man a predator. When after what, 10 videos, 10 clips, he have yet to sound like an actual predator. We'll probably, this woman is, so I just gave you a gist of it. I mean, the story seems like it's it's going to go on forever. I mean, she's still as of today. Again, this is probably post later on, but as of today, she still has a bunch of more posts. So, and already what she's has already said, this is ridiculous that this man doesn't sound like a predator. She sounds, mentally unstable. The typical, in my opinion, the typical woman, the typical modern day women. I believe, personal opinion, more women like this than you might believe. More women like this than you might believe. Because, again, imagine this, more women than ever before are on antidepressants and have some form of mental, are on some kind of meds for mental disorder. More women than ever.
Really started going off. October 2024, I make my first in-person appointment with my psychiatrist in November. My 75-year-old female.
We have our first in-person appointment in November of 2024, and I did ask him for consent to come in person. I didn't just show up. And he said sure. And the first in-person appointment went great. But that is when I really started to spiral. Some of you think that I'm spiraling now, and that's okay if you want to think that, because the reality is that when I was spiraling was when I was this man's patient. When I had comments turned on, so many people said, you need to take accountability for your own feelings. I spent years taking accountability for my own feelings, for holding the weight of a relationship. Any woman who has been trained to overfunction in relationships knows about holding the weight of the emotional dynamic. And that was what was going on in this moment. And it may not seem like I'm taking accountability now, but that's because I spent a long time taking accountability for something that had two people that built that dynamic. It was not just me. It takes two people to build that sort of tension and chemistry. So while I was mid crash out, I had just started using this tool.
Emotional labor. This is the thing where she's saying two people created. He's doing his job. She's creating a fantasy herself. No, you take accountability for what you are doing. That's the point of accountability. You take accountability for your actions and words, in particular for how you're feeling. You're the one who's obsessed with him. He has yet, by the things you said, he has yet to do anything that's obsessive, doing anything that's actually crossing any kind of boundaries.
Tool, ChatGPT. And I went to chat, who I immediately named Henry. And I would just talk to Henry about how obsessed I was with this man, with my psychiatrist. And I would just be like, I've told him I have a crush on him. Do you think he's gay? And Henry was like, oh my God, this girl. You know, he did his best to co-regulate my nervous system and affirm me, but he was like, whoa. Even my chat was like, yikes. So I could tell that my psychiatrist just liked being my doctor, and I was like, okay, maybe I can name this dynamic so I don't have to carry so much of it in our next session. So our next session was in December on Zoom. And I told him at the end of the session, it was another great session. I told him, look, you and I have a really special patient-doctor relationship. And he glared at me with just venom in his eyes. And he said, you and I have a professional patient-doctor relationship. He was so angry with me. And I was like, oh, okay. He set a boundary. And immediately I took it on. And I was like, heard. Okay, I won't go there again. My video that was taken down for harassment and bullying was restored So I didn't feel as much pressure to get all of these parts out today. Some people told me that the stitches about me were getting pretty bad and cruel, so I turned stitches off in my videos too. I started sharing my story here because I wanted other people who have been victimized by people in power to...
Has she been victimized? Again, this is a woman who is honestly hurting the cause. She is destroying what it is to be a predator. She's destroying what it is to be a victim. Literally, nothing she said would imply victimhood. Nothing she said implies a predator. Maybe, in my personal opinion, she's the predator, trying to extract emotional gratification from this man, trying to put this man in a pedestal, or trying to get this man to give her the dopamine effect that she's desiring.
Have a space to feel heard, and now I know why they're...
When I re-downloaded TikTok last week, I was looking for support. I was looking for help because it had been 5 months since I had left Psychiatrist, and I still really couldn't stop thinking about him and thinking about our dynamic and how inappropriate it was and the mental toll that it took on me. And TikTok has just been such a resource for me in the past for support when I'm going through things, and I couldn't find anything on therapy abuse or on
Therapy abuse. Literally, nothing she said sounded actually abusive. This man did what nothing to control her, nothing to violate. Like, this is the problem with women. I honestly believe the whole... I've had plenty of videos of women saying, "Oh, I'm going to falsely accuse this man. I'm going to..." After hitting a man, right? After hitting a man, she says she's going to call the police on him and say that he harassed her or he abused her. After abusing a man, she's going to call the police on him. This is what men experience. Women like this think it's okay to mindly or stupidly use predator, victims, abuse like it's nothing. Like they don't have no definitions.
providers who take advantage of their vulnerable patients. And so I thought that I would share my story. And I am going to continue to share it because I am here to let other survivors know that they're not alone.
Let's end it by... I'm gonna check out this clip with this woman who kind of analyzes it herself. So let's check this one out because she's probably gonna talk forever about it. So let's use this as a supposed end.
There's a woman on this app who's sharing a million videos about how she fell in love with her psychiatrist and is under the impression that her psychiatrist manipulated her into falling in love with him and is in love with her back.
I fell in love with my psychiatrist and he knew that, and he kept me for years as a patient until I was brave enough to leave him.
She makes a lot of absolutely absurd claims in her videos, things that just don't make sense and don't add up.
He was really good at listening. And I mean, he's a Pisces, right? So of course he's going to be there and be able to go deep with my feelings.
No, you're right. This arbitrary delusional belief that the planets somehow impact our personalities, and because he's a Pisces, that's why he's good at listening to you talk, and that's why he's good at responding back. It's not because he spent 12 to 14 years specializing in medical training as a psychiatrist to understand mental illnesses and even therapeutic methods like DBT, which is a form of talk therapy. No, it's because he's a Pisces. And one of the biggest red flags, I mean, there's a million red flags in a lot of her videos, but one of the biggest red flags in her videos is the fact that she's sitting here saying, I'm aware now that I've like distanced myself from him, I'm aware on how he manipulated and gaslit me. But one of her like last videos, she's saying, well, he told me he liked these turtle shell glasses, so that's why I'm wearing it, just in case he sees my videos, because these are his favorite glasses.
I'm wearing these turtle shell glasses in these videos because just in case he sees them ever, he'll see me in his favorite glasses. He did tell me he likes the turtle shell.
I think she manipulated herself. And women that are damaged, women that are addicted to, manipulation, addicted to drama, addicted to the dopamine effects of emotions will often manipulate themselves into situations where they can get that dopamine effect.
You're convinced that this man was manipulating you and gaslighting you, and now you're aware to it, and now you have this like disdain for him. Why are you wearing his favorite glasses? Again, there's a lot of red flags and a lot of issues, but let's chat. My husband is a psychoclinical therapist, and oftentimes those are the people who clients will fall in love with, not psychiatrists, okay? This woman even said that she saw him for 30 minutes one time a month. So 30-minute sessions one time a month. This man saw her for a total of 6 hours in 1 year. Okay, you have to think about that. Usually psychiatrists are there to co-manage alongside psychologists or therapists. A lot of the time they're managing the medication portion, while the therapist or psychologist will manage the therapy element. Usually most psychologists aren't sitting and doing actual therapy. And from what she's explaining, a 30-minute session really is not enough to do therapy. So what is he doing? He's managing her medication, like she said, for ADHD, which she claims to be an ADHD coach in her bio. That's another red flag, ADHD coach, anti-intellectualism. Anyways, my husband was taught in his programs that 1, male therapists are not common, but 2, what is common is for women clients, especially if they have had abandonment issues or have been in abusive relationships, it is common for them to fall in love with their male therapists. Why? Because oftentimes these male therapists are listening to them, they're validating their emotions, they're basically there emotionally in the ways that either their fathers weren't, their brothers weren't, their spouses, their partners. Now, this isn't the case for everybody, but it is very common. In fact, one of my friends, when I was recommending a therapist to her, she specifically told me not to give her a male therapist because she knew she'd fall in love with him. But this is something my husband has had to be keen and aware about because he's young, he's good looking, he's very sensitive and empathetic, and clients love him, male and female. And he did have a circumstance, and out of all the years that he's been doing this, there's only been one that stuck out. And so there are times where it is appropriate to set boundaries. Based on what she was saying, the psychiatrist definitely set boundaries. And what I'm guessing is there was a case of transference. Like what she was feeling, she felt like he was feeling toward her. But this man had no contact with her outside of the therapy office. He didn't entertain when she was saying, I'm in love with you, I have a crush on you. He even switched them to like telesession visits. So just because she didn't understand the boundaries he was implementing doesn't mean that the boundaries weren't being implemented. One of her excuses for like why she was convinced he was like manipulating her and entertaining her is because at one point she asked him if she can call him by his first name rather than doctor blah blah blah. And she's like, well, with other doctors you can. Now here's the thing, when it comes to psychological, psychiatric, or therapeutic care, even if someone's a doctor, whether it's PhD doctor or medical doctor or doctorate, whichever it is, oftentimes they will let their clients call them by their first name because they like to develop a relationship of trust. That's not unique to her, but she felt like it was unique to her. Another claim she made was that when he...
Exactly what I'm saying. So this woman is really just proving a lot of things I'm saying, which, like I said, I'm not no professional, but it's a very logical, if you understand profession, very logical outcome.
He was asking her about her medications. He was asking her, have you had any thoughts of self-harm? Like, this is something I specialize in. And those were her words. The doctor said, this is something I specialize in. And she said he was saying it to make me feel special.
I have to ask this because it's a special interest of mine. But is there any thoughts of harm? Like I was special to him?
No, that's just something that the psychiatrist specializes in. She even said that the therapist she started seeing after him didn't even acknowledge what she was saying. I think the therapist knows that she's just not all there.
I would tell the therapist how obsessed I was with my psychiatrist, and she didn't do anything about it.
But the dangerous thing is that these women will come online and, like, because of HIPAA, this psychiatrist cannot defend himself. And she's given enough information that some people can identify him. She's even under the impression that the only reason he's single, not married, is because he's getting his emotional needs met from his patients.
Did not date. Why didn't he date? Because he got his emotional needs met feeding off of his patients and getting fantasy supply from them and being seen by them. I'm really good at seeing people. He loved the way I saw him.
I'm going to tell you right now, patients like her and other people are exhausting to doctors and therapists. They're exhausting. You're not meeting emotional needs for him. In fact, you're probably tiring him and fatiguing him, and he probably goes home and drinks afterwards because of patients like her. The stories are really wild. There's a million red flags in what she's saying, and it's very clear that she is just emotionally not stable and is transferring her emotions and feelings onto the psychiatrist. If you haven't...
Well, so what do you guys think? I know this is a long video. I wanted to show it because I think this is a amazing. For me, I always love to people watch. I always love to dissect the mindset of people. I always love to listen to, like, let's say, women's dating stories, to understand it, to dissect it, to break it down, to just interpret it. I always like it. I think it's kind of fun. I think it's fun to try to figure things out and try to figure why she's doing something, why she did that, why she did this, why she's thinking like that. I think it's fun. And I believe one of the best ways to understand women is to do things like this, where you are figuring out women's mental state. Because I honestly believe a lot more women than you may think are or extremely mentally unstable. So it's good to figure it out, to understand the signs, to see what it's like. Because like I said, I'm amazed. Well, maybe not amazed. I'm disappointed that a woman like that, who is so mentally unstable, can get a boyfriend, can attract men. But it just shows me that a lot of men have zero standards. Zero standards. They will get what they can get. And the problem is, a lot of men don't understand. A lot of men don't really understand women well, or they don't see women for what they are. I've been there. I've done it, where men will put women on a pedestal. I want a girlfriend. When I was younger, I was so hungry to have a girlfriend, and it ruined my life. It ruined my mental state. Only until I, had girlfriends and all this stuff is like, wow, it's kind of a headache. So the thing is that we don't understand women. That's the problem. Where a lot of men, I believe, they should try their best to understand them, to really get to know what a woman is, what how it, all the mechanics, or all the shit that goes along with it. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting. What do you guys think? Again, I mean, who knows when this will end? She's still posting more videos, so I don't know. She's probably just posting her craziness. But what do you guys think?